जब हमारे ग्रुप में उनको ऐड करने के लिए किसी ने सजेशन दिया तो मुझे भी थोड़ा हैरानी हुई थी कि क्या वो हमारा ग्रुप ज्वाइन करेंगे। तो उन्होंने ग्रुप ज्वाइन भी किया है और वो बिल्कुल रेगुलरली पार्टिसिपेट भी करते हैं। एज एन इकोनॉमिस्ट ही हैज़ हिज ओन स्टैंडिंग। परिचय मैं इसलिए नहीं दे रहा कि वो परिचय ग्रुप में शेयर किया गया है और इसमें मैक्सिमम समय हमारा उनको सुनने में और बाद में सवाल जवाब में जाए, इसलिए मैं परिचय के चक्कर में नहीं पड़ूंगा। शायद वो अंग्रेजी में ही बोलेंगे और वही शायद उनके लिए सुविधाजनक होगी। जब वो अपना स्टेटमेंट पूरा कर लेंगे तब हम उनसे सवाल पूछ पाएंगे। आज ही उन्होंने ये लिखा कि उनको 6:40 पर क्विट करना होगा। तो हम ऐसे करेंगे कि जब तक वो हमारे बीच में है हम उनसे सवाल पूछें और बाद में हम अपने ऑब्जर्वेशंस दें। हमारे ग्रुप में कुछ लोग इकोनॉमिक्स के लोग भी हैं। मैं पर्टिकुलरली एक नाम लेना चाहूँगा, उन्होंने भी शायद पार्टिसिपेट करने के लिए अपनी हामी दी हुई है। हमारे दिल्ली स्कूल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स में प्रोफेसर हैं। तो ऐसे और भी कुछ लोग हैं जो इकोनॉमिक्स के ही लोग हैं। तो हम पहले उनको चांस दें कि वो अपने ऑब्जर्वेशंस दें। हम में से कई लोगों की इच्छा होगी कि हम बोलें, हम अपना ऑब्जर्वेशन दें, लेकिन मुझे लग रहा है कि हम पहले उनको चांस दें कि जो जिनका सब्जेक्ट ही इकोनॉमिक्स है, और बाद में फिर बाकी लोग भी बोलें, क्योंकि टाइम की भी एक मर्यादा है और इसमें अभी संजय ही सारे को कंडक्ट करेंगे। वैद्यनाथन जी, वेलकम टू यू एंड प्लीज गो अहेड। थैंक यू।
Yeah, before we move on to Professor Vaidyanathan, I had listed out some instructions in the group with regard to, moving on to the Zoom, conference in case there is any drop. So please, again, click this link and get into the conference, because there's sometimes a time limitation of 40 minutes. And in case that doesn't work, just look at the group instructions in the WhatsApp group and then follow the same in case there's any interruption. And now I request Professor Vaidyanathan to please deliver his keynote address or his speech, his talk, for which we are looking forward. I have unmuted you, sir.
So thank you, Sanjay ji. Thank you, Rajkumar ji. And thanks all of you for being part of this group. Of course, major reason is lockdown. There is nothing else to do. So as well go and sit before the computer and look at Vaidyanathan. That could be one possibility. Anyhow, I welcome all of you for this group. I hope you are all able to hear me, right?
Yeah, yes, we can.
Audio is okay, right? I will I'll divide my talk into three portions. One is very briefly the global issues which are involved in this corona, and second is what is the impact on our country, and the third is how we are going to, what are the possibilities, what are the future options available to us. First and foremost is this virus originated in Wuhan in China. And even though they are trying to fudge another thing, the fact of the matter is it originated in China. Whether it deliberately was made to originate or whether it, got originated on its own, that's all a matter of investigation. A lot of studies are getting undertaken on that score. And what originated there are two issues in this. One is they have not alerted adequately in time. It appears as early as early December, they were aware of this virus got out of control, but they didn't tell adequately the global, other countries in the globe. And from that point of view, WHO is considered as complicit with China. That they have also pretended, or they have also made appear as if this is not a very major issue. Associated with that, because they didn't tell, there was a huge traffic out of Wuhan around the end of December, beginning January, which was taking place because of the Chinese New Year. Many of the people were moving out, and so substantial number of them might have had this disease and this virus. They might have carried it to other parts and other things. The next issue quickly is, even though this, if you see the map of China, you will see Wuhan and how it is not very far from Shanghai and Beijing. Very surprising, even though it originated in Wuhan, it didn't spread so much to Beijing and Shanghai, whereas it spread to other parts of the world much faster. So this is another question being raised to China, which it is refusing to answer. Why the spread should have been to other major towns and cities of China, because the migration also would have taken place to those places. That is also under investigation. Maybe after couple of years we will come to know of that. Now it spread very fast to Italy for the simple reason many of us may be knowing that Italy and Wuhan had a very, very close relationship, industrial relationship. Wuhan had a huge number of labor force in Italy, as well as a substantial portion of the Italian fashion industry, leather and textile and other things were connected with Wuhan. Wuhan was providing actually both the cheap labor as well as the material produced and other things. So there was a heavy traffic between Wuhan and Italy, particularly the northern portion of Italy, Milano and other places. So that is one of the major reasons why there was a quick spread to from Wuhan directly to Italy. And from there it spread to other places like France and Spain and other things. Incidentally, Spain and Portugal are adjacent countries having a common border, and they are always mentioned together actually. Surprisingly, Portugal's incidence of this coronavirus is very, very low compared to that of Spain. So there is a lot of studies being undertaken on this also. One claim is Portugal has got a compulsory BCG vaccination, similar to what India had, whereas Spain doesn't have any compulsory BCG vaccination. So one theory which is suggested is Portugal has got a very less number of incidents of this virus, maybe because of that compulsory BCG vaccination. Anyhow, studies are going on. Now, what is the offshoot of that? Offshoot of that is a couple of things. Europe is completely in turmoil. Already Europe was in turmoil. G7, for instance, I don't want to confuse you with too many numbers. G7 in 1990, as early as not very far away, something like 30 years before, 1990 had 52% of the global GDP, adjusted for purchasing power parity. While as emerging markets, 4 countries are considered as the major emerging markets in the world. India, China, Brazil and Indonesia. These 4 countries had something like 32% of the global GDP in 1990. The G7 had something like 52%. If you come to 2018, G7 had only 32%. And these 4 emerging markets had more than 50%, 52%. So already G7 was in acute crisis. And it was forecast in 2018 that by 2025, G7 will only have a share of something like 25% of the global GDP. So G7 was, and this decline is what we call mathematically or statistically monotonically declining. It was not sometime declining and sometime increasing another. So this is one of the reasons why Angus Maddison of Oxford told that these emerging markets have to be renamed as re-emerging markets, because they were already in very good position before 1800 and now they are again coming back into the picture. This is the position as of 2018. Post-corona, G7 is facing much more significant decline. France is expected to have a phenomenal amount of decline, and so also is Spain and Portugal, along with some of the other countries. And we all know that Britain has already left the EU. Many other countries are also feeling very uncomfortable with the EU. Our own assessment is France and Italy also will leave EU sooner or later. Only Germany will be left there. That is one type of an issue. Then there is a split in EU. The Project Europe, which started in 1980, is not anymore cohesive or continuing. The northern European countries have got their own agenda. And some of the other countries like Hungary, Austria, Czechoslovakia and Poland are not agreeing with many of the suggestions of EU, primarily due to Merkel's original idea of introducing what are called these immigrant labor. Poland, Czechoslovakia, Austria have all completely what one can call closed their border and now much more acutely after the coronavirus. Of that, Hungary is one country. Very interestingly, their senior leaders have openly told the EU, we will not accept any Islamic migrant to our country. The same, sort of a words. So there is a massive amount of convulsion in EU, and quite a number of countries are feeling, why should we be ruled from Brussels? Why can't we have our own rules? Now, Salvini in Italy, as well as Le Pen in Marianne in France, and AfD in Germany, so many of these countries, the local political, what are termed by the New York Times and Washington Post as the extremist. Actually, they are nationalists. They say that local problem should be tackled in a local way. There is no need for us to be ruled from Brussels. So, from that point of view, the so-called quote-unquote globalization agenda is a grave threat. And some people say already globalization is dead. Along with that, you can see what is happening in US. Again, the current US dispensation is not in favor of this so-called globalization. Our own hunch is in the next 1 or 2 years, US will leave WTO. Because many of the global institutions, some of you may be knowing, are now increasingly controlled by China, which is resented by many of these countries. If you take WHO, it has got significant amount of influence. The president of WHO is Ethiopia, was pushed to that post by China. And China itself is controlling United Nations human rights. That's the most highly humorous type of situation. UNHRC consists of China, Pakistan, then Saudi Arabia, and some of the countries who are, who are never known to have any rights. First of all, leave alone human rights, and they are supposed to be telling others how to act. So the Chinese dominance is phenomenal in many of these organizations. In terms of number 2 position, number 3 position, Chinese dominant means China is not like India where IFS officers are sent there and then they have to act as per the requirement and other thing. All of them are political appointees from the party there, so they represent actually the CPP and not any independent type of interest or anything. So globalization is having its own grave. It is going to be more in terms of bilateral and in terms of these activities. That's one. The third thing is there is a resentment among common people, government may have or may not have, about the Chinese behavior. And quite a number of groups in Europe and other places say that we should not accept Chinese goods and services. How it will take shape and how it is going to develop, we have to wait and see over a period of time. And within China itself, there are some rumbling. Many of the global corporations are expected to shift from China. There was some report actually that Japan is allocating $2 billion for facilitating its companies to move out of China. And there is, of course, immediately people in India are jumping that we should take advantage of it, and we are the next, as if. So that is one type of how much we will take advantage of it as another issue, because we talk about ease of doing business. Ease of doing business is having a lot of seminars in Vigyan Bhavan. That is what I have found out. And sometimes the samosas are good and sometimes they are not as good as it used to be. So ease of doing business is not what is talked about in Delhi. Ease of doing business is at the grassroots level. If you want to set up a tea shop in Bangalore, 21 government permissions are required. 21, note it down. And it is not very easy. I, as a management professor, I used to give my students a project. You go and set up a tea shop in Bangalore and come back and tell me. The condition is you must do it in a proper way. There is no question of, trying to cut corners and other things. Almost all the students have failed. After 3 months, they will come and say, sir, it is not possible. So, ease of doing business is something which is talked about. Basically, between the boiler inspector and shops and establishment inspector, the whole thing is sandwiched, and it is not easy. And kindly note, today US has amended its regulation so strictly that any company doing any bribe within India, anywhere in India or anywhere in Africa or any other place, can be taken to task in US. Their CEO can be punished in US. So that is the current type of a regulatory framework in US. So they are all very concerned about it and worried about it, another thing. Actually, some of the US companies have told we have become relatively uncompetitive compared to European companies, but in Europe also they are tightening this. So let's not immediately think, that all that the Chinese based, foreign companies all going to come and sit shop here and other thing. It may happen or it may not happen, depending upon how, agile or how quick we are in terms of providing and facilitating the process of what one can call investment within our country. As far as we are concerned, we have been impacted significantly for quite some time in various sectors, independent of this corona. Some sectors which have been significantly affected is automobile. And I have always been maintaining automobile is in ICU and it's a gone sector. Actually, it doesn't have any future. We are just shouting automobile and other thing. And before that itself, for instance, a large number of big corporates have stopped buying four-wheelers. My institute, which is relatively a small institute, we used to have 12 cars. Today we have got only 1 car. Because anytime you can always ring up and get customer renting agencies. These agencies are correct and they have got less number of cars, more rotation. All these were taking place. The second is the arrival of this Uber and Ola and other thing, which has also reduced the requirement for owning cars. A third is of course the the new type of hydrogen cell as well as the electric and other thing. So automobile industry is not going to be what it was before all these things took place. There is a huge amount of convulsions which is taking place there. In Europe, many of the countries, major towns, they have banned automobiles. You cannot drive into the main towns in Europe today. You have to either cycle or go by walk. So that is another step which they have taken. So if you see the statistics last 2 years, Germany automobiles have fallen. The production has fallen. Not the rate of growth has not come down. I'm not talking about rate of growth. I'm talking about actual outputs. US is facing the same type of, these are all pre-corona and it is going to be accentuated more in the coming period. That's one type of an industry. As far as the Indian structure of the economy is concerned, 2/3 of our economy is service sector. By service sector, we mean construction, hotels and restaurant, wholesale trade and retail trade, then transport, private as well as goods as well as private transport, and other type of self-employed people. And this whole service sector is significantly by partnership and proprietorship firms, not big corporates. Entire 60-65%. And they are actually the growth engines of our economy. And one, for instance, trade, if you take wholesale and retail, they have something like 18% of the GDP, which is slightly higher than manufacturing, the wholesale trade and retail trade. And all these put together give 80% employment, what is called self-employed or people who are contract employed or something. So this sector is, and this sector, what is also loosely called, a lot of MSMEs are present in this sector, even though they are not as per definition in terms of investment in plant and machinery and other things. That's a separate issue. So this is the sector which is going to be significantly impacted. 2 ways. One is the sector was flourishing, particularly some of you may be knowing, the restaurant part of it was growing at more than 10% real growth rate, adjusted for inflation in the last 12 years. Year after year, this restaurant sector was growing in India. That's one of the fastest growing sector. I used to jokingly say people are not going to advertise for 3 BHK and 2 BHK and anything more. It will be 2 BH and 3 BH only. K will be cut off. There is no need for K at homes. And my mom was there, of course, there used to be 3 hot meals. Today it is all 1 hot meal and all others are heated meals. So that type of growth was there. A lot of youngsters are encouraging, and then came this Zomato and this Swiggy and other thing. Now that growth rate I am thinking about whether it is going to continue on that fashion, because there is going to be, whether one likes it or not, for a couple of months, if not years, some sort of a concern about eating out, going in large congregations and other thing among large number of people. How long it will continue, if you ask me, I do not know. because in our, I come from a town called Tanjore in Tamil Nadu. We used to always call it as three types of, Vairagya we have got. One is called what we call Prasanga Vairagya. You listen to some excellent speech by some orator and other thing, you come home and see how good it is. It can be Chinmayananda or it can be A.B. Vajpayee or whatever. And you are very moved by that and you say that from now onwards we should act like that. And after 1 or 2 days you will become okay, normal, back to. And second is called Prasava Vairagya, the pre-contraceptive period. When she gets a child, she will say enough of it, and no more I am going to be involved in this business. And at the end of it, she will end up with 9 or 10 children. So that is called Prasava Vairagya. And last is called Mashana Vairagya. You go to the crematorium, somebody is dead or somebody's father is dead or something, and look at the way in which crematorium is functioning, and everybody is feeling, and you also feel, what is this life? And, why do you have to really think that everybody is going to go like this only? Another. As I remember, Yaksha Prajna, it's called Krishna in Mahabharata. Dharmaputra was asked by Yaksha, which is the one which fascinates you or which intrigues you so much? Dharma immediately responds. Every day people see people are going to the Mashan. People are carried and then they have this, Ram Ram and other things. But still, at the end of it, people think that they are permanent. He comes and says that, you know who I am, and act accordingly. So like that, these Vairagyas, how long it will last, we do not know. Whether it is going to be permanent or whether it is going, but couple of months at least it will be continuing, I am sure. In that sense, visiting hotels or visiting very large areas and other thing is going to be significantly reduced. So these, like travel, for instance, for drop of a hat, people jump into the plane and then go from Hong Kong to New York or Manila.
Professor Vidyanathan, can I interrupt you a bit?
Yeah.
When you look towards the computer or where, on which you are, we receive your voice clearly. The moment you move out of it, and then there is a drop in the voice. So just be a bit careful. There are a couple of people who are not being able to listen.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. So thank you. Please carry on.
So that travel is also going to be significantly affected. It's not going to be as it what it is normally called business as usual. So these are 2-3 industries which will be, of course, trade is not going to be as much affected as it is. Some people say the entire internet will take over, and that will all be, always being told about another thing, unless government deliberately want to kill all the retail, businesses, which is very difficult because it has a huge amount of employment, which means it has a huge amount of voting also. So that is the type of a thing, as far as our service industry is concerned. And this requires significant amount of help from government as of now. One is because of the lockdown which has taken place. Second is already there is some, we had what you may loosely call the demand side constraint, and the government did some help only for the supply side of the big companies. And now it is going to be both ways, supply side as well as the demand side. So the government, first and foremost, government should be obsessive about the 3% fiscal deficit. This is imposed by the WTO through the World Bank, and most of the European countries are not following it. Actually, very interesting. Some of you may be knowing, Spain and this Italy fudged the figures about their fiscal thing, and then gave some chartered account. There are enough chartered accountants. I hope in this group also there are some who are there to sign it. They signed it and they submitted to the EU. EU later came to know that these people have fudged the fiscal deficit. Theirs was around 5.5%. They showed it at 3%. Anyhow, so this 3% is not any God-given rule or anything like that. According to my quick estimate, which I've also been working on, up to 7% we can go comfortably without any problem. That is one thing which we should keep in the back of the mind. I think we shouldn't be too much obsessed about these, the numbers, like, we shouldn't, like, similarly the Basel norms, 181 days if you give, then you become a bad customer. And these are some of the things which we have, according to me personally, foolishly adopted without taking into account our local conditions and other things. Okay, so the government has to come forward to facilitate in terms of benefiting all these small and micro enterprises. One of the things some of you may or may not be knowing, we have a system of this commercial banks and other type of cooperative bank and other thing. Put together, they give credit for working capital, running the business to the extent of 40-45% only. The remaining 60% comes from money lenders, chits, queries, and various other type of things. They play a very large role in this. And we have a very, you may call it stupid, fascinating, or whatever rule under RBI, where a moneylender cannot borrow, but he can only lend. I have never seen anywhere in the world any such moneylender. How can without borrowing he can lend? No, sir, he cannot borrow. He can lend. A barber can borrow, a butcher can borrow, but the moneylender cannot. This is our country. This is the current rule, and lot of lending is done by moneylenders in this country. So one thing is, this rule should be first removed. This rule came during Chidambaram time because he was over enthusiastic. He felt moneylenders are, are all squeezing the. It's a standard thing, they are all squeezing the people. Their interest rates are very high, because my flower girl borrows at 1% per day. Per day, 100 rupees in the morning, 101 rupee in the evening. I asked, why can't you go to the commercial bank? Government so much advertise, sir. Who will give me money at morning at 6 o'clock? Commercial banker doesn't even, I can't wake him up at home, another thing. And no paperwork, nothing, and no collateral. The maximum collateral she is, if at all, is required is her bangles, which is the gold, which is the most sensible thing most Indian women do in terms of buying and keeping it in the jewelry form. So I have a simple economic index. If both the bangles are available in my in my flower girl's hand, that means economy is doing okay. If one bangle is gone, it means economy is getting into a slow recession. And today both the bangles are gone. That means we are into complete recession. This is what I call the bangle index of performance of an economy. So first and foremost, government should encourage all commercial banks to refinance all the activities of these people, the lower level people, whoever is lending another thing. And much of the lending comes from black money. And we are again, huge amount of this obsession towards this black money. I think domestic black money. We don't have so much obsession to global black money. Something like 1.5 trillion estimated Indian money is all over the world in tax havens. That we are not thinking so much about. But the small, for instance, one of my friend had 70,000 rupees in cash. And he went to give it for this Corona bonds. Recently announced, you might have seen some PM relief, and there is some controversy also. Why don't you accept it under the old Prime Minister thing? And anyhow, the bank told you up to 10,000 only you can give in cash. Other thing you have to give in check. Baba, he has got some 50,000 rupee black money. He doesn't want. He wants to give it. Let him give it. Corona itself is black. So to remove it, if somebody wants to give. But no, government has not amended that also. I have been telling for the last 1.5 months, do something about that. Quite a large number. Maybe he is feeling that, I will get some punya by providing by cash. Whatever it is. So, lot of our thinking belongs to the 60s and 70s. We are not, So, for the MSME, second, what government can do is, some of these lockdown period, some employers may not be very enthusiastic about compensating their employees. Maybe small, maybe medium, or government can come forward and pitch in. You give for 1 month, I will give for 1 month. Nothing, earth shaking or anything about it. I will provide for the amounts and other things. So that is the second thing they can. First is give big boost to working capital requirement by refinancing. Second is giving this. Third is lending, borrowing activity. No question is asked. You just, because huge amount of black money. This black money is a symptom. Let's understand it very clearly. The disease is the corruption by the government. That is where the money is generated. We don't tackle that. We only tackle the symptom. Every day we have estimated around 2006-07. I would love all of you to buy my book, India Unincorporated. Right? You don't have to read it. At least buy the book. That I would be very happy about. And we have estimated something like 75 crores per day is generated in a town called Bangalore alone per day in the form of cash. You can multiply it for all other towns and then find out how much it could be, right? And where does this money go? The largest amount generated in all the towns is by the police department in cash. Then registration, then hospital, then so many other areas. Where does this money go? This money goes for lending in the unorganized sector. That's the only source of, major source of financial activity. So let's be very clear about it. Unless and until there is a corruption in government level, it's not going to be easy to tackle the black money. You can pronounce so many degrees, you can pronounce so many amount of conditions and other. Nothing is going to matter. So in the current situation, which is everybody is agreeing is a warlike situation, I think let's not be obsessed about it. Let's encourage it. That it domestic black money, let me repeat, plays a productive role in the economy. Unlike global black money doesn't play any role. It's sitting idle for sometime 0.5% or 1% only it is earning. Sometimes it is not even earning anything. So this is the second thing government should do. It should recognize that there is a huge amount of working capital requirement is there. It should ignore about this 3% rule and other thing. And the next one is it should start a huge amount of infrastructure activities. That's one thing which will provide employment to large number of people. It should pump in money for significant amount of infrastructure activity. And again, a lot of people who have moved out of these towns like Delhi and Bombay, and they will all come back. 100% sure. Our economic development is such that some people are writing thesis that in UP you develop a massive amount of industries and all that is talked about for 50 years. I know about it. Nothing is going to come. They will all come back. From Bangalore, some of you may or may not know, some 3 years before, huge amount of exodus took place of northeast people and eastern people. Bangalore is run by Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Coimbatore. All these are run by these people. Today, if I want to get a plumber to fix my pipe, I will not get a Kannadiga or a Tamil plumber. I will get only a plumber from Orissa. If I want a carpenter, I will get it only from Bihar. If I want a cook, I will get it from Orissa or from what they call West Bengal, maybe Bangladesh. Almost all the categories of trade are from people from East and Northeast. I've always been telling East and Northeast has moved to South. For instance, all the southern girls are beautified by the people from Northeast. Southern girls are made beautiful, look beautiful, because all the beauty parlors and salons are run by girls from Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, and all these places. So they will all come back. They are not, and fortunately for us from Bangalore, nobody has moved out. So from Delhi, some people have moved, they will all come back. There is no, otherwise, I shouldn't tell, Delhi can't run also. Unless all men decide to wash the vessels on a daily basis, which I am very skeptical. That is similar to Corona, Vairagya. So it's not going to happen. They will all come back. So massive amount of investment should be undertaken for infrastructure. That's most important. So these are some of the steps the government should do in conjunction with the private sector. And what are the opportunities? Great opportunities are available to us. One is whether one likes it or not, for a couple of years at least, if not months, the wellness is going to be a major thing all over the world. People are going to be concerned about their health as much as return on investment and wealth. So now wealth and health are going to go together. And we have a huge amount of labor power. We have a huge amount of potential to become a global hub of wellness industry. If you go to London, you get you enter into NHS hospital. Finally, one who is treating you is from Kerala. That girl, she is from Kottayam or Trivandrum or something. You go to New York, finally you get treated by somebody from Kerala or from Chhattisgarh. These are some of the places which produces huge amount of nurses actually. Every young girl I have come across in Kottayam is want to join a nursing college. You might have visited or you might not know about it. There are thousands of them training them. All of their aim is to go to Saudi Arabia or to Dubai and from there to London to New York. Now, I think we have to gear ourselves and start huge number of wellness centers. Not just Ayurvedic, allopathic, but combine it with Ayurveda, combine it with yoga, combine it with nutrition, various other type of things. A stupid thing, I shouldn't call it stupid, but my grandma used to give me turmeric mixed with milk in the night. All of children used to run away. She will say, because anything given by grandma, we were very uncomfortable with, because she used to give this castor oil for us. You know, every month she will say, you drink castor oil. Castor oil, we thought no human being can ever think of consuming. Anyhow, so grandma comes in run. Now the same thing, it's called now turmeric latte. Can you beat that in US? $4.99. The big glass. Small glass is $1.99. It's called turmeric latte. This is the stupidest thing I can think of. But I am sure they are going to put IPR on that, and they will get a brand or whatever that, and they will say, if you want to put the turmeric in your milk in India, you have to pay some amount of money through government, because it is our branded product. So we have a huge potential to develop what I would call wellness industry in India. We have labor, we have enough amount of these semi-beard and full beard people who who say that they know yoga, they know this, and they know that, and a lot of white Americans are willing to spend a couple of dollars for all this. That is one huge employment generating thing. We should become a health hub for that. And already many people are very, whether one likes it or not, they are surprised that we are not affected so much. A 4.2 billion country, 1.2 billion country doesn't have millions of cases. So they feel there is something, in this place. So we should leverage on it very sincerely. Massively we should invest in every town. My estimate is 436 hill stations are there in India. Each one of them can be developed into a big wellness and health center for both domestic as well as for global people. Enough people from Italy, enough people from Spain, enough people from France will come, particularly the elderly people there. Kindly note, elderly people there are not taken care by the families. This is something very important. 50% of the US families are single mother families. Family as an institution is dead in most of these countries. And so they have a huge problem of elderly people only. And many of these countries, elderly people have crossed 20% of their population. And they all require some. This whole Mother's Day came about because of this problem. All mothers were put into old age home, and once a year at least they were told you should remember them. So bouquets were generated and used to be delivered for Mother's Day. We also celebrate Mother's Day. I am very fascinated by that. Anyhow, so elderly people are not looked after by families, and they are all looked after by the caregivers, and many of the caregivers are from Kottayam. So why can't we have our own domestic caregiver, bring them here instead of sending these people there, bring them over here, and then. So this is one industry which has global potential for us, where it's not a very high level of very high level of labor requirement is there, which will provide employment. The second is, already there are a lot of this homeschooling in Europe and US. Significant amount of homeschooling. One of the reasons for homeschooling is in US, they don't like this schools teaching this evolution and other thing in the Bible Belt. They feel that evolution will spoil their children, because man has descended directly from Adam and Eve, not from monkeys and other things. So due to that, this homeschooling has become very popular. And Europe, homeschooling is also popular due to other reasons, because they feel the government and other things are not teaching them correct things. Anyhow, so the net-based education is enlarged on a very reasonably good scale. We have a very good IT industry, and we can leverage on this IT industry, and both domestic as well as global. We can provide net-based education. We can provide net-based, and not just school, even colleges, because abroad, many places, they have this connection with the outsourced agencies. For instance, 5 or 6 engineering colleges have one common laboratory available through an outsourced agency, but they use it actually. I remember one SSV from Hyderabad, he started a certified financial analyst course in the 90s. He was a Dirgadarshi. I will give him, Padma, Bharat Ratna anytime. He told, I will put a board telling we are not recognized by any government, state government or central government. He did put a board also, courageously, before his educational, because he also had used net in those days itself very well actually. He told we are not recognized by. So this net-based education will revolutionize actually the whole education system. Because today, if you have 100 acres of land, then you become an educationist. you declare yourself and create an engineering college, and you declare yourself as vice chancellor or chancellor even. And quite a number of MPs from Tamil Nadu are of this category only, whose only qualification is they had 100 acres of land. They cannot write, they cannot pronounce nor write engineering in a full way. But they are, so this entire group can be eliminated. And huge amount of corruption in appointment of vice chancellors, even average lecturers at the lower levels in our country. Unless you pay, you cannot get employment. So this will be a major what we call game changer. Is net-based. And who is going to worry? The only people who have to worry is the employment giver. As long as the recruiters come and find the quality of the students reasonably good, and there is nothing wrong about it. There is no need for, if at all you want to create a council like CBSE or ICSE or whatever it is, a council to regulate in terms of, and nowadays, you know, word of mouth, this spreads like anything. Quite a number of engineering colleges in South, at least I know, are closing down many of their departments because the students are not forthcoming. For the simple reason, word of mouth, it is spreading that these are useless. They claim computer, but nobody knows computer there. Anyhow, net-based education, not just within India, outside. And of course, this will also have a very interesting side effect in terms of reservation. Net-based education, how are you planning to introduce reservation is another major question. That's a separate issue, but that will also be cropping up. So this is a second major opportunity for us. So the first opportunity is getting companies from China who are planning to leave to India. Currently, kindly note, we are significantly dependent on China and G7. More than 70% of our cell phones sold in India are Chinese controlled. And almost all our information highway is US controlled. Your Twitter, your Facebook, your, including what we are currently using. This is also China controlled actually. A Chinese man is controlling this Zoom. We are not telling anything top secret, so we can actually use this. But almost all the, and now the 5G battle has started. 5G battle is between Huawei, which is Chinese controlled, and between the the American companies. Our role is nothing. Our role is just to sit and look at both of them, and so we don't have full control about our own entities and economy. There was a news item telling that the China Bank has acquired more than 1% in the HDFC, the holding company, and China is also looking at acquiring other type of companies which are low, bearing fruits in India, and as well as in Spain, Italy, and France. Australia has already banned any foreign acquisition in Australia without their permission. Similarly, Spain, Italy, France are planning to have regulation on this front. And I think high time India should also seriously think about it. Otherwise, it will lose. It's not going to be a easy task. You know what? Some people are suggesting China is doing like that old puncture fellow in my town. He will ask a boy to go and spread nails on the road. And so the automobiles will come and get the tire punctured. Then the puncture wala will go and tell, I will rectify your tire, sir. Stand behind. So this is what many people are thinking China is doing. They have created this crisis. They have made companies in a very bad situation, and they feel this is the most appropriate time to acquire them. So that is so we have to be alert about not giving up our own corporates. Unfortunately, some of our corporates also don't mind. They wouldn't mind even selling it to ISIS, I am telling you, as long as the valuation is good and returns are good. Some of our corporate, I'm not telling all of them, because our corporates are not really rooted to the soil and patriotic and all those things. That is all for others. So this is the some again. So we have to be alert about this also, not giving up, and we have to make ease of doing business significantly lighter, so that major companies can come and set up shop here. Then we have to enhance our domestic MSME financing, as well as being obsessed about this 3% fiscal deficit and all these Basel norms and other things, as well as getting the financing adequately for the MSME, and not worried about black money is being used for some of their productive activity, domestic blackmailing, and removing that 10,000 rupee check gap for funding for the corona, bonds and other things. So, last point I would like to make before I close is, every major crisis has always generated some amount of significant changes in our economy and society. 91, if you go back, we had hardly, something like 10 days of, not even 10 days, 3 days of import requirement can be met, and our forex was really dwindled. And then we have to take our gold to, the bank in London, and then, but out of that came a phenomenal amount of change in our routine. One of the, if you ask me personally, one of the greatest prime ministers India ever had, P.V. Narasimha Rao. He announced huge amount of changes in terms of regulatory framework, in terms of licensing, in terms of a letter of intent, so many things. And similarly, when Pokhran took place, everybody told India is finished. Our credit rating companies gave us CCC, and then we had a blockade by US and other countries and other things. Vajpayee announced that we will float global bonds, and the amount of subscription we got is unbelievable actually. We thought we will get a couple of million. We thought we got a couple of billions actually from the NRIs in the world. So almost every crisis, Arshad Mehta created such a major crisis. Then there was a bomb blast in 92, 93, if you recall. And after that, huge amount of changes took place in the share market, in the stock exchanges and other thing. We got NSE, we got SEBI, and so according to me, every crisis, and we generally act in crisis. We are a country who act in crisis. Normal time we are chaotic. It's okay. While the Europeans are the other way. Normal time they are very, very orderly, and this type of chaotic situation they do not know how to handle at all. Actually, they fight in the supermarket for toilet paper, and they have bought a lot of guns. They think guns can attack this coronavirus and solve their problem. God knows. Anyhow, normal time we are chaotic. Abnormal time we seem to be more organized. I always say Indian society is very well organized. Government is disorganized. European societies are disorganized. Government is organized. So our strength is our people, our society. My French professor sent me my colleague sent me a mail telling he is fascinated that thousands and thousands of people from Delhi could, they were all going away in buses to UP and Bihar. There is some controversy whether they were instigated, whether they were, whatever it is. He says orderly. People are all standing in queue and getting into buses and going to that. He says in Paris there would have been, these buses would have been burnt to start with. There would have been riots. I told no. Our people are our strength. And there is some scaremongering that there will be huge scarcity and other things. Do not believe any of that. 70 million tons of food grain is available with FCI, as per the last data I have got. And normally they require to keep 25-30 million tons. Why are they keeping 70 million tons? Because most of our bureaucrats who are currently in senior position, they all grew up standing in queue for buying rice and sugar and coffee powder in the 60s. So their deficient mentality is so much in the bureaucracy. 410 billion US dollar we have got in foreign exchange. Does anyone talk about it? 410. Huge amount of it is invested in US government securities at 3% and 2.5%. So we are a scarcity minded generation running us. We are a surplus. And so the 70 million, there is not going to be any, poverty will only be in New York Times and Washington Post. They will show some old pictures of Bihar in 1960 and then, emaciated child. Second is, we have a massive number of NGOs today in this country. Substantial amount of funds are, again I am telling to the government, forget about CSR, GSR and all these things, encourage huge amount of these NGOs, involve them actively. You provide government money through these people. Seva Bharati is doing such a grand amount of work. It's not written about or it is not talked about, it doesn't matter. So we also have reach today, not just government reach by these private groups. So let's not throw up our hand. We are in very good situation. We are a very civilized and organized society. every crisis provides its opportunities for us. So we will come out of it extremely successfully, I'm very sure. And we will be doing great thing in terms of global health provider, global education provider. And the global health, of course, people don't mind paying any amount of thing for health in India. But education, they are very reluctant. In Bollywood, the lady goes and weeps, any amount of money I will give, save him. But nobody goes and weeps to a principal, any amount of money I will give him knowledge. That doesn't happen. But global level, they will be willing to pay. Domestic level, we are still reluctant to pay for anything. We feel the knowledge should be free. All are, Dronacharyas going around, having some free food and other things. But the global level, it is not like that. They are willing to pay. But I'm sure slowly, local level also, people will be willing to pay for getting their education. Because we feel we should get free. I was joking with Rajkumar Bhatia. He is, I think, he's muted. Sanjay Ganju also.
I will unmute him. I will unmute Rajji.
I told him, whom do I send my bill after this session? He was laughing. And I was sure if you are all known about it, many people would not have joined this.
Sir, the moment you talk about bill, we'll send you a link of PM Cares funds.
No,
I didn't get him. I didn't get him.
Raji is...
So, thank you all.
Thank you, sir. So nice of you. So, allow us to, ask our members some questions, or they would like to make some observations. So, what I'll do is I will request them to, raise their hands technically or physically, whichever way they are convenient.
Some questions I got in the, in the Twitter and not in the WhatsApp, actually. I think Kailash Nath has asked some questions as well as some,
Yeah, what I'll do is, sir, what I'll do is, I will request the members to raise their hands, and then they will ask their questions or observations. So I'll do it in bunches. So let them 2 or 3 come, then we will go to the next. You will reply, and then we'll go to the next set. That is how we will go about it. So any hands which have been raised till now?
I think you might have to unmute some of them.
Oh, they will raise their hands, sir. I will.
Oh, okay.
Amit Gupta ji, one. Anybody else?
Here I think
Rajesh Saxena, Kailash Nath ji, yeah. So we'll start with Amit Gupta ji. He was the first to raise the hands, and then move on to Kailash Nath ji. Amit ji, please.
Thank you very much. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, please. Yes, clear.
Yes. Namaskar, Dr. Saab. It has been a pleasure to learn from your insights. I wish to understand about your views on the real estate sector, sir.
Yeah. So we'll take another question, sir. So what I'll do is...
Real estate sector was already having enough problems. Much before this corona, I think it will take a year or 2 for it to stabilize. And again, the sector is also significant amount of government confusion and other things has played a part. But again, in terms of people acquiring, and a lot of these projects are half done, in the sense many of the units are not sold, and working capital requirement is a huge problem. And I hope, and I have also suggested to the government, in some way or other, I am associated with the real estate sector, that they should open up the purse, or they should allow the purse to be opened up between the refinancing agencies and NBFCs. The one thing could take place is it may get into a lower level of equilibrium. The pricing could become significantly different compared to what it is now, in terms of lower, I'm talking about, relatively. And then the equation between check and cash could also alter. Already it is altered in many of the towns in the country. So I visualize a year or 18 months time frame for it to completely come out of its issues, because its issues are not only linked with corona. It is also, earlier itself, I think you will agree with me, it has its own specificities.
Thank you. Sir, we'll take 3 questions at a time so that it is easy for you to respond to them in a bunch. Yeah. So now, Mr. Kailash Nath, I will unmute you. Sir, please go ahead.
Sir, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, yes, clear, loud and clear.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, we can hear you.
So amazingly clear. It was a very complex subject has been made very extensively clear to us by our dear Vaidyanathan ji. Congratulations to him and congratulations to our Raji and all of you, Sanjay ji, for organizing it in a very brilliant manner. My one small question to Vaidyanathan ji is, I had raised in our, made a small posting in our group where I had classified it into auxiliary and real present and ancillary problems. So one small question is, how will we address the sectoral imbalances which may emerge after this corona problems in economy, our economic thing? How we will address the sectoral imbalances? Can I? What will be the scenario there?
Okay, you see, for instance, there is a good possibility that in agriculture, for instance, because of the fear of this coronavirus and all these things, there could be increased direct, operation between the farmer and the, at least in the metropolitan towns and the surrounding areas. Already many of them are bringing vans and then selling another thing. Again, as I told you, we cannot really predict how long it will persist. All these concerns, today everybody is putting a mask and all this, but how is it going to be a couple of months or is it going to be a regular type of thing? So the agriculture could have significant impact if there is a direct transmission between that, because intermediaries will have their own. If government eases, its worries about the moneylenders and other things, the intermediary, financing cost can come down. Some of you may or may not know about it. The retail borrowing is something like 5 to 6% per month today. Per month. It's not, and while the global companies like your Amazon and other thing are borrowing at 2.5% and 3%. It's not a, sort of a level playing field at all. Retail borrowing is phenomenally very high rate, and it is possible if the sectoral, shift take place, the retail borrowing also would come down, for which government has to, facilitate in terms of, I think we are excessively obsessed about, small amount, like, 40,000, 50,000 rupee, and the black money, who is getting, where is going, another thing. Whereas, something like, I always say, if you borrow 40 lakh for a flat from a bank, you have to be every month worried about EMI. How are you going to pay? Is it going to be paid or anything? If you borrow some 4,000 crores, the worry is to the banker, not to you. So the modern finance tells you, the larger you borrow, you shift the worry to the lender. It's not to the borrower. This situation should change. For which, of course, there are associated issue of cleansing the judiciary. We don't have a system of swift and severe punishment. This is something very tragic, actually. Cases drag on and on and on, and we believe in rebirth, so that next birth, the lawyer becomes the judge, judge becomes the accused becomes the thanedar, and nothing happens. So that could be one of the, our belief in law of rebirth may be one reason why we feel punishment can be meted out over, not generation, over several. So it's a very, so we don't have a what one can call moderation in terms of lending. NPA, people are shouting. I have arranged for loans to istriwalas, vegetable vendors, small fellows. They have all paid promptly. I'm telling you. Well, the loans given to better off segments have not returned properly. This is something very interesting. I have been telling government to publish educational loan default, where from it arises. Government is not publishing it at all. It arises from IIT, IIM, and other top level institution graduates. Let me repeat it. Some people may not agree with me. The better off segment in India behaves worse off. The worse off segments actually behave better off. Example is orderly queue, people going away from Delhi to UP and Bihar without burning that buses. They just stood there. They got into it. You know, there was a huge crowd and other. My French colleague told in France, in Paris, they would have burnt all the buses. This is the difference, right? So the government has to less worry about this 30,000, 40,000 fellows or 50,000, 1 lakh fellows. Another associated thing with you, I will share. I feel up to 10 lakh, they can exclude people from paying any income tax. It's a harassment actually, if you ask me. And similarly, senior citizens again up to 10 or 15 lakh, they can exclude. People who are above 60 years and other thing, they are already threatened by corona, poor fellows. And so the Prime Minister says you should take care of the senior citizens and other things. So something like 10 to 15 lakh they can keep a cut off, and why 80-year-old fellows have to file income tax thing, and many of them may not even properly remember. And then some banks are funny. They say your handwriting is not same. The fellow would have started his account when he was 40-year-old. Every 5 years, as you move up the hierarchy, your handwriting changes. I used to write full R. Vaidyanathan when I joined as assistant professor. They go along with the thing, and at the time of retirement, I was drawing a line only. And my director was not more than that. No, I'm telling you, the harassment of this regulatory framework is unbelievable in India.
Yeah.
You have given enormous powers to these babus actually. We can dismantle again and again. I am arguing. We can close down lot of the ministries. Nothing will happen. Why do we require a steel ministry? What is the role of steel ministry? I debated with some. They say no, sir. We have to appoint a chairman of SAIL. For that, you require a paraphernalia of a minister and all these. Prashar Bharati, 78,000 people. Independently, that this what do you call Ramayan can come. There's nothing like that. You have a council, small, and we have finance ministry, 85,000. Huge amount of babudam we have created. Government should focus on Kshatriya role. Protect, investigate, punish. It should have cops, army, and other things. Government should have only Kshatriya role. And some of the high level of technology roles where private sector may not be having enough amount of fund, like ISRO for instance. Fortunately, that is situated far away from Delhi, and that's one of the reasons why its rockets are still functioning. If it were nearer to Delhi, it would have. Sorry, most of you may be from Delhi, but they would have put all the babus and the Sifars bases and other things. He would be, flight engineer. He would be astronaut, and who is the astronaut, sir? He is the nephew of the minister and all that. So Satish Dhawan did a wonderful thing. That's one of the few wonderful things that was done in India. He told Indira Gandhi, far away from Delhi, you keep the institution, then only I will come and head it. Otherwise, I am not going to. So it is far away. So huge number of ministries can be. Seriously, I'm telling. Nothing will happen. You think, and many of these can be shifted to state government. Most of it is duplicate. Have one agriculture there, have one agriculture here, have one animal, women and child welfare. There is another ministry, and the woman who heads it thinks it's her own child welfare. It's it's a big thing in India actually. A huge state is not a desirable state. And I am puzzled actually, nobody seems to be, and reduction in state will automatically save huge amount of money to the government. First of all, where from money will come, why not cut and keep them at home and pay them full salary? I don't mind. All babus can be kept at home, lockdown, same thing can continue till they retire. And they can be paid. I don't mind contributing something from my own pocket. I give it to Goshalas, why not give it to Babushalas? You create this places where babus can stay and take care. It's you think about it actually, because we have become excessively, government obsessed. First question everybody asks, what should government do? Government is not a solution. Government is the problem. Okay? Let me put it again and again. If some government babu says and comes to you and say, I will look into it, it's a very dangerous situation. Associated with that, I have been writing so many places, and all these, those are what you call Padma, those Padma Bhushan, Padma Vibhushan, and what is all this? We should government. These are all Stalin era remnants. Stalin used to genuinely think that state is the one which should appreciate. I'm not going to listen to Bhimsen Joshi because he is Bharat Ratna or M.S. Subbulakshmi. Are we? Nobody knows even that he is a Bharat Ratna. He's a great singer by his own thing. And one minister, cabinet minister, goes and gives one some doll, or I don't know what is that, precise, right? Glass one to a Bollywood actress, and shakes hand. Nowadays he may not shake hand because that's a worrisome thing. He will do namaste. And why should he do it? He requires a cabinet minister to go and tell a Bollywood actress, you are one of the most skinny actor, one who showed maximum skin. So this is what, it's a ridiculous type of situation actually. And the amount of money we are spending on all these tamashas, not required. We don't require many of these things at all. And one thing I am happy, I should conclude, that print media, at least English print media, is gone. So I should tell you the good news. According to me, it's in ICU. Soon it will go to mortuary. English print media is gone in India.
The INS has approached the Prime Minister now.
Huh?
INS has approached Prime Minister to give them some bailout.
Sorry?
Indian Newspaper Society, they have approached Prime Minister for a bailout.
Yeah, they have approached, they say that we should be financed. I hope they don't do that, right? It's not, right? Already some people are getting removed. I'm telling you, between James and this Shobana Bhartiya and Avik Sarkar, some thousands of people will go away. Because all of them are in downroom. Of course, 90% of it comes from advertisement, not by subscription. That's why they are. And in between, the president of the Congress party told, acting president currently, told that the government should not provide advertisement. So these people are more worried about it. Because they live on advertisement. So they are very unfortunate, but some industries will die. Print industry, English print industry. Regional print industry may continue to flourish because there are enough people to read regional print. English print will go. That's something,
Shall we
I don't
move
know. It's bad news, but it's a news.
Yeah.
Right?
Let us.
Those days, Karanjia used to say, Blitzy was running. He used to say 50 rupees for publishing your story and 500 rupees for not publishing your story. That something was, that was Karanjia formula. So the same thing is adopted by many of the print people today also, right? So, correct?
Yeah, we have many participants who want to ask any question or they want to make any observation. So we'll move on to two more participants, Mahesh Kaushik ji and Anil Kumar ji. So I will unmute Mahesh ji first.
Sure. Observation or question? Anything?
Sir, question is there that you said that black money can help in creating demand in the economy, domestic black money. But do you think it is practical for the government to increase the black money? And the second thing is that if we assume that this lockdown will at least go till 3rd May, then how will it affect the agricultural production and the demand of food items and supply of food items in the economy?
See, one is this.
Yeah, next one, sir. I will take one more question and then you can respond to both of them. Just a second. Mr. Anil Kumar, just a second, I will unmute you.
Namaskar. Very practical insight into many issues. And very rightly pointed out, sir, that every crisis brings new kind of opportunities. Now the crisis is before us. And the biggest challenge which you're going to face is how to restart our industry and other economic activities. You talked about ease of doing business. I think it is here that much is required to be done because there are so many bottlenecks, maybe at the state level, and maybe that some labor reforms have to be done and some arrangement have to be done whereby labor can stay in the factories itself, as has been announced or going to be announced by the government. And one more thing I think that remains to be untouched is the stimulus package is to be given to the industry, because right now they'll be facing a lot of problem in restarting their production and other such activities. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. First, by Magesh Kaushik is, you see, it's not that I am telling black money should run or anything. Black money is the one which is running the smaller, lower levels of our economy. Let's be very clear about it. Not today. From 1960s onward, from the T.T. Krishnamachari, Mundra time onward, black money is the one which has been running. This is the, and black money comes out because of huge amount of corruption in various levels of government. So I'm not telling the government should encourage black money or anything. Government can just close, have a what is called the benign neglect. Government can get close its eyes, that's all, at the lower levels, and let the economic activity pick up, even if it comes through cash. Nothing wrong about it, actually. And that is the very simple type of thing. Second is, he was telling about, I agree with you, there is a huge amount of stimulus which requires to be given. And maybe, you can call a meeting of chief ministers, and substantial number of these regulations can be scrapped, right? And there will be a hue and cry, obviously, among the bureaucrats, because they will lose a huge amount of their sources of funds. Like, my American colleague, I was going in a car with him in India. She told, India is the only country in the world. She has traveled in Africa, she has traveled in Latin America, China, everywhere. Only country in the world where women worship peace. She says, I have never seen anywhere in the world. Suddenly you come and the road, suddenly you find some group of women standing before a tree, applying kumkum and showing Ashwin. She says, Professor, it's something fascinating for me. I told her there is something more also in modern India. You come, I took her. There is a road in Bangalore, huge road. And they were doing puja for the road. A corporator, elected corporator, contractor, and the Babu in the corporation. These three were doing puja for the road. So I asked, why are you doing puja for the road? Sir, this road is our common road. 15 times we have relayed this road in the last 6 years, again and again. And due to this road, his daughter is in medical school in US. My son is doing law in US. So that is the type of this is the type of activity which you are seeing in India, actually. A huge amount of what one can call corruption at the lower level. So there is a need to scrap large amount. There are 25 regulations and rules and laws at the state level which generate only corruption. And nothing much more is to be coming. There is one thing called Food and Adulteration Act. Many of you would have heard about it. I was asked to, reform that, augment that. And whenever an act has to be augmented, I get worried. Because every act in our country is a mechanism for government employees to make money. Nothing more or nothing less. I asked a simple question. How many people have died in our state eating in hotels? Small hotels, all these. They told none. Then why have all this paraphernalia of the big act? It's a draconian act, actually. Fortunately, households are not covered by that. This food and adulteration. Otherwise, he will come into my kitchen and tell your cooker has got small dirt on the left side. I have to pay him money. I'm telling you very seriously, the PM should convene the CM's meeting, corporate heads meeting, and on a very war footing. Huge number of these regulations and has to be scrapped if you want proper active business. That itself will be a very big boost for businesses. My hunch is the lower level businesses pay 15 to 20% of the turnover as corrupt rates. Turnover, not profits. Because the bigger fellows have got, Ambani will have a lot of lawyers and chartered accountants to fight his case. The lower fellow doesn't have it because he is, one man show or two man show. They don't have time nor the ability. So doing that itself will be a phenomenal amount of easing. Then of course financing. The last is about agriculture. There is nothing again to worry about agriculture. All the laborers required for Punjab will again go back within a matter of maybe in the second easing on 20th itself. And all the laborers required for other type of activities will also come back to Delhi, come back to Bombay. It's not something which is. Only thing is the current employer, whether it is a domestic help or whether it is, should be gracious enough to pay for the 2-month lockout period. That's where we are carrying and sharing. This is very, very important. And for businesses, government can, as I told, come forward. You pay 1 month, we will pay 1 month. That type of a compensatory payment can be adopted. Right? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we'll move on to Mr. Prashant Singh and Amarjeev Lochanji. So I will unmute Prashant ji first, just a second. Yeah. Prashant ji, please go ahead.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir. I hope that I am audible to you.
Yes, yes, you are.
Sir, I have seen, have you seen that Japan, US and many other countries, they have been announcing the packages for, you can say, rehabilitation package for their business and economy. And it is as big as 20% to 25% of their GDP. It is something extraordinarily big. So why do you think that it is such a huge, these economy needs such a huge amount of rescue package, number one. And our government has not even announced up to 1% of the GDP. So why do you think that there is such a huge gap between what is that made the US, Japan, Germany and all those countries to go for that 20% thing and our government for 1%, even less than 1%. So where is the difference between the thinking? What is the
Amarjeev ji, please go ahead. Amarjeev ji, next question.
Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar. Yeah.
Amarjeev, President from Delhi. Namaskar, Vaidyanathan ji. I have one question is related to this morning development. After, in the wake of extension of lockdown, Barclays had just come out a few hours ago by putting the Indian GDP to zero growth, zero GDP from 3 point something to 0. And what is your opinion about this zero GDP forecast by Barclays? The same. What is the meaning of zero growth? How zero can become growth?
No, that means they are meaning no growth. When they say zero growth, that means there is not going to be any growth at all. That's the only thing. Instead of having 2%, 3%. Is it as of now? Let's not, the one. Of course, I am not criticizing anybody, but the problem is we are umbilical cord-wise genetically so much linked with the Western thinking. For instance, suddenly I'm sure in the next few weeks, the credit rating agencies will announce India is BBB minus or CCC or whatever it is. The credit rating agencies themselves have to be rated today. Actually, what is their rating? What is their standing? What are they going to give for France, Spain, and Italy and others? So I think these reports that let's not. If we are going to grow at 0%, let me tell you, many of the developed economies will grow at -5 and -6. So let's not have any illusion about it. We are going to be one of the reasonably well growing. My hunch is still we will reach something like 4%, 3.5 to 4%. Anyhow, let's not too much get as far as the government thing is, government has not yet announced any type of a major rehabilitation thing. I'm told maybe in another few days or maybe in a week, they will come out with some substantial amount of announcement. And again, how much percentage of GDP and other thing is not very. You see, the European countries, the problem is large portion of that is actually the government funded in terms of their social security, in terms of their health scheme and all that. In India, unfortunately, 80%, as I told you, are self-employed and contract laborers. It's not really government funded. So the government can announce huge amount of scheme, but at the same time should be concerned about leakage and so many other type of issues and whether it reaches the correct hands. But I am given to understand they are going to come out with some scheme which will be, see, our GDP is 200 lakh crore, at least something of the order of say 20-25 lakh crores, I think they should be coming forward to announce for solving the short-term problems, and I hope they will do it. I'm sure, because after all, every government, whether this government or that government, ultimately wants to get votes, and you don't get votes unless you provide a significant amount of rehabilitation in this type of a crisis, right? So you have to wait. Maybe they are. I'm told they are working on it. So, right? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else?
Yeah, there are a few more. So we'll have to, you have given us time till 6:40, so we'll make judicious use of that.
After that, I will bill to Rajkumar Bhatia. Why do you mute him?
I will unmute him.
You unmute him.
Yes, I will.
He is fine. He and Sandhya Jain also. Why do you mute her? Unmute her.
Yeah, I'll unmute him. So we'll move on to two more participants.
I'm patiently listening to you.
So we
I know that. I'm going to send a bill. Okay.
We have Gopakumar and Ajay Setiaji. So we'll unmute Gopakumar first.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. One of your suggestions was basically to move away from this so-called physical discipline. So now that raises the question: how do we do our deficit financing? Is it again borrowing, public borrowing, or printing of new currency? Because I was looking at the budget, so much of our expenditure is actually 20% comes to servicing of loans. So taking loans may not be a good idea for deficit financing. So what
sorry, I will answer this quickly. We have $415 billion available to us in the form of forex. Much of it is invested at 1.5% and 2% another. We don't require to have $405 billion. One. Second is we can easily float in the international market today, actually. Huge number of our NRAs, I am sure all those, what is that called? Howdy Moody group will, each one can give, $100 or $1,000 even. That would be, we would be able to get. So financing is not such a bigger issue. Even domestic, we can generate huge amount of funds actually, provided you are not obsessed about, you don't give in cash, you give in check, and then, all that if you are not, we will be able to. So there is, deficit financing is not such a big problem. Last resort, we always have this Nasik Press, and we have 3 more created. One in Mysore, one in Bengal, what is that called? Belguni, or what is that place in West Bengal? There is one more press. So we have enough press capability. We can, do a good job of that also, if required. So that's not a very, so deficit financing need not be a major concern for us. If you ask me, out of this 410 billion forex, we can easily use 100 billion. Nothing. Even won't fall.
Ajay Setiaji.
Namaskar. Sir, there are so many manufacturing units of China in China owned by USA and European Union companies, and some from other countries also, Japan also. And now they want to, they will change their manufacturing unit from China to another countries, as Japan and USA have already encouraged them to come back. They may choose some countries which have the cheap labors. India is one of them. India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and these cities, these countries. Is there any possibility that some of the units may shift their manufacturing units from China to India? And if they if they come, do we need some changes in the industry policy?
I thought I spoke for 40 minutes, and of that 10 minutes on this issue of ease of doing business, and you are again asking, it's, you can't attract those businesses until and unless you change your local regulatory and other measures. right? You can't do business in India without bribing. Let's be very clear. Whoever you are, I am willing to, I have been telling this in several fora. People are not happy about it, but that's a fact. And today in US, their laws are so stringent. You bribe a fellow somewhere in deep Maharashtra or Tamil Nadu or Bengal in order to do business, you can be taken to task by the US authorities. The CEOs of many of the companies there are very concerned about it. So unless you alter the framework of doing business in India without bribing, you are not going to get any massive crowd of people coming in.
Thank you, sir. So I will request.
Did I make myself clear, sir?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you say that you can do business in India without bribing, I cannot argue with you.
True. The next one is Mr. Kapil. So I am unmuting Mr. Kapil.
Ji, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Namaskar, ji. Now we all know the problems. And solutions are also known to us. The issue is how do we implement? If Tesla can put up its plant, starting from the word go, in 9 months in China, how are we going to ensure that a similar kind of an opportunity when it comes to us can be utilized? For example, Sony was working and manufacturing its units. Moment Malaysia and China offered better terms, they just left us. Similarly, a lot of multinational companies wanted to come because of very many opportunities, but they all left. Now, ease of doing business, how do we go about it is the issue. How can we change the mindset? What is the roadmap is the important part. I mean, saying that, yes, we are corrupt, we have got these labor laws, we have land laws, but how do we do this? That is the moot question. Thank you.
Kapil ji, this question was posed in a meeting where I was sitting in 91 before P.V. Narasimha Rao.
Ji.
I was physically there. He smiled and left the room. Within 1 week, he announced scrapping of controller of capital issues. Unbelievable. You would have heard about, I am sure some senior people at least here would have heard about CCI, controller of capital issues. He just scrapped it. He told no need. Why should he decide the price of a share to be sold by a company in India? He did complete scrapping of licensing, except 8 sectors. Within 1 week, he did that. He didn't change the mindset of people. Don't blame the people. People are dumb. Government is deaf. Let's be very clear about it. He introduced these changes. Nobody protested. They were very happy about it. So current crisis is a great opportunity for our government. If our PM and if our cabinet wants to announce some drastic measure, nobody is going to object to it. Favoring, except some middlemen, except some brokers and others who are benefiting out of all those things. The type of revolution P.V. Narasimha Rao brought about based on that crisis, not many people are realizing. He was a great prime minister, I'm telling you. He was a visionary, actually. I was told that he knew 9 languages. Great fellow. So he changed it. Nothing. He just announced, that's all. People were aghast, actually. People were aghast at the temerity. Actually, it was written in one of the English papers. This is the temerity was the word used for him. That he is taking a big gamble. Nothing happened. And he was correct, actually. Right? So let's not again and again beat about the bush and we all know the problem. Who is going to solve? Kapil is not going to solve. Vaidyanathan is not going to solve. Ganju is not going to solve. Right? Bhatia is not going to solve. Bhatia will listen only. So nobody is going to. It is up to the leadership to come forward. And the crisis is the greatest opportunity to announce some of the dramatic decisions. You have to do that. And you can blame on the crisis. You can say Corona. Right?
Thank you, sir. So last one from Satish Minocha ji. He is the coordinator for Jigyasa. So I'll request him to ask the last question or make an observation and then we conclude the session.
Yeah.
Just a second.
So will the government gather courage to announce major changes is the issue actually. Otherwise, we are losing out on a huge opportunity. We can use Corona for several other side activities actually. We should do that. PVN did that. I'm sure you recollect, no?
Yes, true.
Next day after PVN announced these, there was a tremor in Delhi because huge number of these, commission agents and middlemen lost their job. There were people who were trading on licenses. Everybody knows.
Yeah, Satiji, please go ahead.
So I have two observations on which I would like to have your views. One is that government has allowed, RBI has allowed moratorium for borrowers. Now, though borrowers have not to pay for 3 months, there are many people who have borrowed from the MSMEs or from the NBFCs, but NBFCs are not being allowed moratorium by the banks. So don't you think this will create a liquidity situation? Second point is the government is sharing that they will not increase the fiscal deficit, though you are a votary that government should not restrict to this FRBM Act. My point is that when RBI has 7 lakh crore reserves, can government not request RBI to give them 3-4 lakh crores under these emergent situation?
$410 billion US. Nobody is thinking about it even in foreign reserves. And 1.5 trillion money abroad. Indian money stashed abroad. You can, under UN anti-corruption resolution, which we are a member, you can pass a resolution, ordinance signed by the President of India, appoint a commission, appoint a senior person as the receiver, ask him to collect all this money. 1.5 trillion, not 1 rupee or 2 rupees. If there is a will, there is a way. Do you have the will? That's the most important thing. 1.5 trillion, sir, is not a small amount. Convert it into Indian rupees. And if you ask me, that is the first and foremost which we should aim at or attempt at and try to get it back. Peru has got it, Nigeria has got it, Philippines has got it. All of these countries are chota-mota countries compared to us. Why are we reluctant? Why do we allow our business people, sports people, musicians, politicians, bureaucrats to accumulate so much ill wealth abroad? Is this not a crisis situation for us? This is not a war type situation for us. We should get it back. If you ask me, pass an ordinance, tell those countries, anybody having it without RBI permission, that money belongs to us, and arm twist those countries. All those countries have got huge amount of investment in India. You can arm twist them very easily. See, crisis situations are great opportunities for major changes and reforms. I think this has not been fully understood by the current government. Crisis situation is not for giving bhashan. Crisis situation is for action. You must initiate great changes, and that will be remembered. Why should $1 trillion come into India, sir, in 2020? Oh, that is due to Corona. So instead of, nitpicking here, MSME should be given 1 lakh crore and this and that. You bring that money. You can provide everybody. What was that Baba Ramdev's slogan was? 15 lakh rupees per head. He told he will give. He could not give. His company is flourishing. That's the only thing. So that's all right. Right? So yeah. We must take surgical action on economic front, if you ask me. And this is a good opportunity. Nobody is going to complain. Everybody will say it is for the good of the country. And nobody is going to come on the road because they cannot come on the road to agitate. So they have to be at home agitating on the television, or not television, these type of Zoom. That's okay. So nothing will happen. According to me, in the next 20-30 days, great opportunities available to the current government to make huge and earth-shaking announcement on India. Will they do it? I don't know. We'll wait and see.
Thank you, sir.
Right?
Can we take a couple of more questions, or you are already out of time?
We will have to thank people profusely.
Okay.
And you have to give your valediction, right?
Thank you, sir, and so nice of you. I'll request Rajji to, propose the vote of thanks, and also, request you to send the details for Bill. Just a second.
Vaidyanathan ji, thank you very much. You were right in pointing out that it was the demand of Sandhya ji that we should be inviting you, and I immediately acted on that. Yeah. Because Sandhya ji, when she wants to raise some thing in Jigyasa, she is virtually one of the founders, and her suggestion is an order for us. So I immediately
give a hand.
In fact, in the group, there was a great demand. In fact, I got a call from Dr. Ajay. I think Dr. Ajay has not been able to join. I got a call from him. He, in fact, suggested 1 or 2 names, and he was very eager that we hold a discussion on economy. I said, we'll try to organize it as early as possible, and within a day or 2, we could do it. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, because many people in the group, they are deeply interested. At least 2 professors, I expected them to be here today. Professor V.K. Kaul and Professor Surendra Bansal from Delhi University. Perhaps both of them are not here. Professor Bansal probably had agreed, had said that he will participate, but then something, I think he lost one of his parents very recently. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. And Sanjay, I think we can take some observations now.
But Professor Vaidyanathan has to, leave. His time is up. So
we can allow him to leave, and then we can continue, fine. Perhaps.
So Professor Vaidyanathan, you are free to, carry on. So we'll continue for a few months. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So nice of you.
For that initial
thank you, sir.
Mischief,
thank you.
I think you have done initial mischief, I would call it, right?
Yeah.
So thank you all. Thank you
thank
all
you,
for
sir. So nice.
Time. Good amount of good interesting person. I hope I could fulfill some of your
yes, absolutely. It was wonderful. Thank you, sir. So nice of you. So I'll move to Mr. Sanjeev Singhal.
Sanjeev, now only observations.
Yes.
No questions.
Sanjeev.
Okay, I actually had a question, but from Dr. Vaidyanathan to know what will be the impact on which anybody in the system can, give their observation on. This whole thing, what will be the impact on these small NBFCs who are lending to the medium sector or the trading segment, where people are looking for small loans for about 3 to 6 months, 50,000 rupees, 1 lakh, 2 lakhs, 5 lakh kind of loans. How will they get impacted?
We have suggested to government to loosen the purse and make the large banks to refinance almost all the lending to be done by the small NBFCs, including money lenders. I have been telling, individual money lenders. So we have been suggesting must refinance without any question and remove all the, for instance, second-hand vehicle, if you buy, it doesn't come under the priority sector. Suddenly some bureaucrat thinks some idea, and then it is put as a regulatory framework. Why can't second-hand vehicle have always been considered as part of the priority sector lending? It's a small fellows who, see, out of 2.2 million trucks in the country, 50% are single truck owners. Small fellows, one truck, another thing. And the second-hand truck is not something spectacular or something. On one side, you want to encourage people buying Audi car, another thing. The second-hand truck is excluded from the And similarly, these big banks like Canara Bank or your Citibank used to refinance many of these NBFCs. That was considered as part of the priority sector. And now they are telling, no, you cannot refinance. Some amount restrictions are. I think completely, these people are out of touch with the what I would loosely call Indian reality. Every senior bureaucrat should be compulsorily given 3 months off and asked to go and set up a shop, small petty pawn shop in Calcutta or in Bangalore. 3-month project. Simple project. You go and set up a small pawn shop. Finance secretary, your job is one shop in Bombay. Joint secretary finance, your one shop in Bangalore. And at the end of 3 months, come back and then share your experiences, whether any of them have set up the shop at all successfully. So it's a completely alienated from the grassroots. And one thing I should add, don't mind my adding, these big four are all totally misleading our government. They have their own vested interest, and big four are all registered in tax havens. You should know that first. They are not registered in regular territories or anything. They are offering, this suggestion, that suggestion, and recently they have made some amendment to CSR. Hopefully they don't implement it due to Corona. And so, what should CSR? I have been telling Goshalas, if they fund, CSR should be allowed and encouraged. What is wrong about it? No, it will create. What will it create? Cows, let them eat in India. And if big companies want to give to cows, let them give it. It's not a crime. Already many of them, I know, Marwari companies are giving it actually. But you have to fudge it, you have to put it under some other heading. You can't put it as Goshala. Goshala means income tax question. Why are you encouraging cows to eat your corporate money? Only the government employees are eligible to eat your company money, not cows. I'm telling, completely out of touch with the ground reality. So small NBFC, all funds should be refinanced. And all these regulations like second-hand truck financing is not there, and money lender cannot borrow but only lend. And this facilities which are to be given as refinance cannot be categorized under. And all this whole thing is stupid actually. This priority sector 40%. If you can't run a commercial bank today if you want to be proper and fit actually. Go into all the regulation. Weighted average cost of lending versus weighted average cost of borrowing, the gap will be as low as 1%. Anyhow, again, let me appeal to all of you as well as through you to the government. Huge, dramatic, important changes can be brought about using this crisis. Go back, and unfortunately, there is no crematorium of Narasimha Rao in Delhi. His body was not even allowed to be brought into AICC office. But keep a photograph of him in front of you, close your eyes, contemplate and think. If you were alive today, PVN, what you would have done in order to alter the structure of our economy. He couldn't do much. He was running I think all of you remember, he was running a very fragile coalition government. Depending upon all these, what do you call it? Jharkhand fellows. Right. So, but still he could do that. So, through you, again, let's pray to my favorite god is Lord Ganesha. Let's pray to him that this government takes some major, important, completely turning around steps to alter the structure of our economy as well as to put us into the next orbit of growth. Thank you all. I'm leaving.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So are there some observations or we can close? Professor Vaidyanathan?
Yes. Quit now, so we can move ahead. And
are there some
somebody
observations? Otherwise, let's close.
Nobody is raising hands, so I think.
So let's close then.
So we'll close. Yes. Thank you, and thank you all. Fortunately, it went uninterrupted. So that is how we were able to manage this. Thank you, and so nice of you. So we'll end the meeting.